Okay, let me move this out of the way. Okay, so let's dive in. Today's lesson 2, we're talking about business case today. Okay, so basically, what is a business case? A business case is basically a way for a project team to justify the request they're making. They're asking for a proposed investment. It's usually money, right? There's this company that does manufacturing. They have different departments in the company. Most, if not all, of the departments use IT to different extent. There's an application they use to get their job done. Okay? 3 of the 10 companies in the organization are saying to top management, we need to change our application. It's really not working for us right now. Well, the company only has so much money to spend. They don't have an infinite amount of money to spend on IT projects, right? And so what would happen? The person who is able to make the strongest case as to why this is a good investment for the company is the department that's able to make the most convincing argument for why they should be the one getting the money. It's the one that would get the money at the end of the day. Okay, so basically it shows the justification for proposed investment and how reward is going to outweigh cost. Any company that gives you $3 million to implement a project, they want to see how that $3 million is going to make them $10 million. I guess even if they're not for profit, nobody wants to lose money. And so when you're trying to convince them on why they should pursue this application, why they should pay that money to implement Salesforce, right? You're going to be telling them how, even though you're spending $3 million, it's going to save us $10 million over the next 5 years. One other thing that a business case does is that it basically assesses the benefit, the cost, and the risk of alternative options, and basically why you're going with the one that you've chosen. So in the business case, you're going to talk about how in your research, you've narrowed it down to these 3 applications, but of the 3, this one is the one with the least amount of risk, or this one is the one with the greatest potential to save us money or to make us money. Okay? It is typically created by the project manager and the BA. Okay? Usually, I'll be honest with you, when a task involves the project manager and the BA, expect to do a lot of it as the BA. Because the project manager is also managing the entire project, right? So it's not that they're just sitting looking around, they're also working. So in your company, a lot of that work might actually fall on you, you know, the research that needs to be done, collating the data and all of that. And it won't just be the 2 of you. You're going to talk to other stakeholders. Like I said yesterday, a business analyst is not a miracle worker. You're not like an oracle where you just look into something and you know the answer. Whatever you're coming up with, you should be getting from the people who know, the people who have that information. A business case is then submitted to management once it is prepared. Management will look at the facts and the figures and decide if the organization is, 1, able, are they financially capable of doing that project? And if they are they willing to make that investment? Think about it this way. Like every regular human being, you have a certain amount of money, but you have 10 different things you want to do. There has to be a logic that you're going to use to decide which one you're going to do now and which ones you're going to delay till later, because the money you have just cannot cater to everything. Okay? Somebody might be wondering, so if they're still doing business case, why did they hire me as a BA? I mean, this means they don't even know whether they're going to do the project or not. That often is not the case. In some cases, what it is that the company knows that they're going to spend this $3 million. They just need to figure out on which project for which department or for which group of departments, basically. Okay? And so when they bring you on as a BA, working with a project manager for a particular project, sometimes they don't have approval for the budget yet. And that's one of the reasons why they're bringing you in, to be able to help them with the business case. Okay. Moving on here. So what are the major points that a business case would basically address? One, it will talk about the current problem. This is the problem we have today. The application that we have, our customers are not able to interface with it. The application is so not user-friendly that even though people want to do business with us, when they go to our homepage, they just close it. You may already know this. There's a way for you to track how many people are coming to your website. They open it and they just close it because it looks very ugly. And you can also track how many clicks they make before they close it. So in your business case, you can put that data in there if you've done the analysis to say, that one of the problems we have is that the potential customers who want to do business with us, but we've noticed by analyzing the data that after 2 clicks on the website, they exit it. Okay. Another thing a business case talks about is the benefit, the potential benefit to be achieved through that solution if it is implemented. It also talks about resources, right? The people you need to implement the project, how much money you need, how long it will take, and all of that nice stuff. It often talks about the organizational change required to implement the change. So I told you about the optical character recognition project that I did yesterday. Apart from implementing that technology, there was a huge organizational change. Some people had been working that way for 30 years and we were changing it. So huge organizational change, massive training, change management, and all of that. It talks about return on investment as well. So we'll be investing $3 million over the next 2 years. Once the project goes live, we're going to be saving $2.5 million annually for the next 5 years. We're basically saying, give us $3 million and let us save you $12.5 million over the next 5 years. I don't think anybody is going to even entertain or engage with your business case if they can't see the return on investment. Just think about it this way. Somebody comes to tell you about a business. They tell you to bring $100,000, but you stand to benefit nothing at the end of it. Why would you even want to do that? Okay. And he also talks about the time frame to recover the money. It is not good enough that you're going to save me $12.5 million. If you're saving me that $12.5 million over 25 years, it is useless. I'm not interested in it. Okay, 25 years is a long time. That application would even be relevant in 25 years, right? So it's very important to have the time frame for the ROI recovery, the return on investment recovery, and it needs to make sense. Okay. A second here. Hope I didn't jump a slide. Okay. So steps for developing a business case. What are the steps that you'd follow? Number one is you identify the need. Okay. There is a solution meets a need. There is no need for creating a solution if there is no need. And that need may be a problem and may be an opportunity. A problem would be the application isn't working properly. An opportunity would be if we implement it, we will be able to onboard more customers. Okay. It identifies the need and the desired outcome, so strategic environment, strategic fit, detailed description of the business need, and the scope. These are the 4 points that you want to address under identifying the need and the desired outcome. It also identifies viable solutions, right? So like I said, it could be 3 applications that, your company or the project team has done the research and they're like, these are 3 potential applications, right? And this is how each one of them can work towards the solution that we're hoping to achieve. So basically, the ability to contribute towards and realize the desired business outcome. Any tool you're mentioning in that document, you have to be able to speak to how that tool is going to meet the need. And then you need to talk about the cost as well, the full cost, okay? Not to worry, I'm going to be presenting a business case to you today. So you're going to see a lot of what I'm talking about in action, okay? Another step is that in the business case, you're going to evaluate options. So how will each option you've indicated in the business case, how will it help deliver the business goal? What we're trying to achieve. How will each of those applications help us achieve it? Okay. Is it a user-friendly application that we expect, will retain people on the site and not make them keep exiting because it's not user-friendly? It will quantify the benefits of each potential solution, including performing a cost-benefit analysis. A cost-benefit analysis is basically a snapshot of how a benefit will outweigh the cost. Okay? You don't want to do a cost-benefit analysis where the cost will outweigh the benefit. What would be the point? I'm going to give you 3 million to save me 1 million. No, that's not going to happen. Okay? And then in the business case, you're going to select the preferred option as well. Of these 3 options that you've researched and analyzed, this is the one you're recommending and why you're recommending it. Okay. In the business case, you're also going to talk about your implementation strategy. How will you implement that preferred option? And once you implement it, how is it going to help you achieve the business objectives? You're going to talk about the resources that you need, right? You're going to hire a project team of 10 people, 1 project manager, 2 business analysts, 3 QAs, and 4 developers, something along those lines, right? A solution architect, whatever technical resource or talent you need, and even non-technical as well. And then you're going to indicate who's going to be accountable for each milestone. Who's basically, who do we hold if something that should happen does not happen? You're going to indicate all of that. And you're going to indicate how to mitigate the project risk. Every project always has a risk. It doesn't matter how well you've planned it, how long you've planned it, how experienced everybody is. There's just always a risk. And so you need to, 1, know the risk, and 2, include information on how you intend to mitigate the risk. Bear in mind, some risk cannot be mitigated, but we'll get into the detail of that later. Okay. And then we talked about you recommending a preferred solution, but you don't stop there. You have to obtain approval. As a matter of fact, that's why you're even presenting it to management. You want to present it and wow them to the point that they're nodding their heads and they're like, okay, great idea. This is the next step for our company. We totally want to do it. The objective is to get approval from the board, executive team, external stakeholders, or investors, the powers that be, basically. Okay. So let's talk about how you're going to present. Now you have, theoretical knowledge of what to include in your business case. So how do you want to present it? First, you're going to have an introduction. And trust me, this introduction is where you're going to, this is make or break. If your intro is terrible, you've lost some people. They're just sitting in that meeting thinking about what to eat for lunch. You don't want that to happen. Your introduction sets the scene for the document and explains why you even prepared the document. This is your point, your opportunity to wow them, basically. Okay, and then you go into your executive summary, summarizing the entire business case, the need and the opportunity. You go into background of the current situation, so the pain points, this is what isn't working well right now. Then you talk about the options that have been considered, the advantages and the disadvantages of each one. You then recommend an option and give a clear statement of how you came to that decision. Like how you came to that conclusion that this is the best way to go. And the reason you're doing that is that you want to be very clear about the decision you need from them. Because it doesn't matter how much effort you put into this business case. If they don't make that decision to approve it, that project isn't going to happen. You talk about the cost-benefit analysis. So I've talked about, that is basically saying this is how much it's going to cost us and this is how much more we're going to save or make. You talk about the impact analysis. So what impact will this project have on the organization, for example? You talk about the fact that you've identified the risk, you've analyzed it, and this is your plan for addressing the risk. You then have your conclusion and your recommendations. And if you have supporting appendices, that's where you would bring them up. Okay? So that's basically an outline of what your business case may look like. Bear in mind, again, this is just a guide. I'm not saying that every business case you write has to have every single thing. And you may write one that may have a bit more than this. The uniqueness of the project would define what you're going to include in it. But there's some things that are non-negotiable. Cost-benefit analysis. The guys at the top, top management, they're about the numbers oftentimes. They need to know why they should even be listening to you. All right? Is this topic even worth discussing? How much money are they going to save? They want to know that it's non-negotiable. You almost can't prepare a business case without having that in it. In summary, start with a big bang. I talked about your presentation. So you walk into the meeting, you greet them, they greet you, and then when it's time for you to start your presentation, when you first open your mouth to speak, let the first 2 sentences, let it resonate with them. Let them hear it and say, oh, I want to hear more. Of course, I'm not saying lie or make things up. It has to be based on your research. But an example would be, this presentation would explain how our organization can save $12 million a year from its operating expenses. Tell me which chief anything, CEO, CIO, whatever, would hear that and not want to hear more. Every company wants to save $12 million annually. Okay? Then present the issues and the solutions and end on a high. What does that mean? At the end of it, summarize the issues and clearly restate what you're asking them for. You've booked their time for 1 hour. You talk for 35 minutes, thereabout, and then do a summary and reiterate what you need from them. It's not enough you give them all this information. State clearly why you've brought that information to them. The decision you need them to make. And of course, the decision is that you want them to approve your project, basically, and give you the 3 million or the 5 million, whatever it is. Okay. So let's talk a bit more about cost-benefit analysis, right? We know it's one of the critical things you need to include in your business case. What does it look like? It's contrasting the costs and the benefits. Of course, we want the benefits to be higher than the cost. The project sponsor should be in overall control of the process. That 12 million I talked about earlier, it's not your place to just go through 12 million in a document and go present it. You can do the research is 12 million, but let the higher up see the 12 million and agree that it can actually be 12 million. If it turns out to not be 12 million in the 5 years, we don't want it to be your name on it. At least not your name alone, right? So again, you're not putting all of this together and just going to present it to the CIO. It really doesn't work that way. At least it shouldn't work that way. Okay? We look at the business users and actors, right? Which are like your stakeholders. They should have a say in identifying and quantifying the potential benefit. So let's go back to the 12 million. How would the BA have arrived at the 12 million? That's because when you met with accounting and you met with sales and you met with marketing and you met with Department 4 and you met with Department 5, each one told you how, when we implement Salesforce, marketing tells you, we're going to be able to onboard 20% more customers, which will translate to 2 million annually. So that's 2 million out of your 12 million. Okay. And then accounting tells you how, they're going to be able to save 2 million. That brings you to 4 million. The point being that 12 million is not yours to fabricate. It's going to be a cumulative amount from all the different stakeholders that are going to benefit from the project. They are the ones who should be giving you that information for you to put together. Okay. The other key thing is always distinguish between a feature and a benefit when you're writing a business case. Obviously, you want to emphasize the benefits more than the features. So when you're presenting a business case, you don't want to say, oh, when we implement this tool, we're going to have a faster response time. That is great, but what does it mean? Who cares whether it's faster or slower? What does faster mean on the books? That's what we want to know. So we want to know what that faster response is going to translate to. Is it going to require fewer people to do the work because now it's faster and so consequently a cost saving? Is it going to enable more orders to be taken per day, which means we're going to have an increase in sales? Those are the things management wants to hear. Don't stop at, oh, this application is faster. This application can house a lot of data. The database is the latest in town. The CIO or the CEO, they don't care about that. They care about the benefit, not the feature. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. Then we look at the impact. Okay, not every impact is money related. Some impacts, they're related to change. You're making a huge change. You're implementing a new application. You're doing automation. It's going to take away some of the manual processes, right? People are scared about their jobs. People may even want to make the project fail. I've heard that before on a project. One of the stakeholders said they were determined to make sure the project failed because they were threatened by the project. Okay? So all of those impacts as well, which are risk in a way, you need to identify them. And the solution to that might be re-educating them, and telling them it's actually you're not losing your job. We're just going to redirect your time to more value add task. You phrase it in a really nice way that would make them feel important because they are. Some of it will involve retraining staff because even when you implement a new tool, as smart as tools are, oftentimes they still need human beings to work them, right? And so there may be some retraining. You may even need to recruit new staff with new attitudes, right? Because there's some people that no matter how much you try, no matter how much an organization tries, they're not going to come on board. Okay? I've worked on a project that it got to a point people just started quitting because they felt threatened. These are real life scenarios that I'm sharing with you. It is not your responsibility as a BA to do employee retention, no. But because you're going to be interfacing with the stakeholders a lot and you're talking to them, and sometimes they're going to talk to you about the concerns that they have, you need to go in prepared to have those conversations. And don't lie. If they're going to be fired, don't go in there and say you're not going to be fired because you don't know that, right? But you're going to look for a diplomatic way of communicating what you're communicating. Having said that, there should be like a change management lead, somebody who is basically championing that re-education and retraining and all of that. That's not your job as a BA. The reason it's coming up is because you're talking to the stakeholders a lot. Okay? If there are no cost or the cost cannot be evaluated with any accuracy, let the decision makers know. Okay? You know that there's going to be an impact, but it can't be quantified. Just document it somewhere so somebody knows that that is the case. Okay. We talk about risk. So like I mentioned earlier, all projects and most investment will involve some type of risk. There's almost nothing you can do to avoid it. However, a business case makes more sense if you can show that those risks exist. And this is how you plan to tackle them. And by you, I mean the organization, right? Knowing their risk and not including it because you think the business case is going to look terrible is a bad decision. You're going to come across like you don't know what you're talking about and you haven't fully done the research required to be making the type of ask that you're making. Investment appraisal. So Conventionally, there are 3 stages of risk. One is first identify the risk. Okay? One risk is that people are going to quit a lot because we're doing automation. Okay? Then you evaluate how big the risk is. Like, what are the chances the risk would happen? Okay? The probability of the risk. And if it happens, what impact will it have? If 10 people quit in the accounting department all of a sudden because they feel threatened, what is the fallback plan for that? What impact is it going to have on the department? And how will that be addressed? The third thing is you're going to identify responses to the risk. Assign a risk owner to every risk. And the risk owners are the ones who are basically responsible for the risk. They're monitoring the risk to see if it will happen. And if it happens, they know what to do to address it. Some of the ways that risk are responded to are, so one is to avoid it. Do everything you can to avoid it. Start change management early so that people are not worried they're going to lose their job and they start, boycotting the new system. Okay? Sorry, that's actually mitigate. So we have one, So avoid, mitigate, transfer, and accept it. When you're avoiding a risk, you're basically carrying out actions that would reduce the possibility of it happening. You want to reduce it to 0 as much as possible. That won't always be possible, but there will be a plan to try. An example would be to avoid a risk of selecting the wrong software package. Do a proof of concept. Like when I worked at the insurance company, right? We had 4 solid companies that made a proposal to say we can totally implement this solution for you. These are well-known companies in the IT realm. But we didn't take their word for it. To avoid stories down the line, what did we do? We did a proof of concept. Okay? The next possible reaction to a risk is to mitigate it. When you're mitigating it, you're looking to reduce the scale of the impact, even if it happens. So, or if it seems like it's going to happen, an example would be you're giving a contract to a vendor, you're going to implement their tool. But you build a clause into that contract to say, if this risk looks like it's going to happen, we are canceling the contract, and you get them to sign it. Okay? Typically, when you mitigate, you may still incur some costs, right? But you're oftentimes not incurring the total cost because now you're making every step to try to make it not happen. The third option is you can transfer the risk. An example of that would be insurance. Everybody who drives gets auto insurance. Why do you get auto insurance? If your car crashes, somebody else should pay for it. You transfer the risk. There's nothing you can physically do within your power to avoid the risk. However, you've made plans. If the risk ever happens for real, somebody else will carry the cost of it. Okay? The fourth option is acceptance. Sometimes 1, 2, and 3 are not options. What needs to happen here? The decision makers need to be aware of it, and they just need to factor it into their decision making and possibly make room for how they're going to address it when it happens. If the risk actually happens, it's the type of risk that can't be transferred, you can't avoid it. The only thing you can do is accept your fate, basically. Okay. So we've come to the end of business case. Let me look at what the time. Okay, we're doing well for time. So what I'm going to do now is, before I go into my presentation, I'm going to open it up for questions. So if you give me 1 second, okay. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, do we have any questions? Does anybody have questions about business case that I can help to answer? Okay, I see people are raising their hands. If you give me a second here. Okay, so I'm just trying to, sorry, give me a second, please. Okay, Titi, you have your hand raised. Go ahead, please.
Hi, everyone. Abiola. My question is, I'm thinking so far, we have been talking about best case scenario, right? So in my mind, I'm thinking my first question is, the project manager, is it usually, is the person usually a member of the staff of the organization? And if yes, are there instances where you have conflict of interest causing a rift between the project manager and the BA, being that the person is going to be an outsider?
Okay, so the first question, whether the project manager will typically be an employee or a contractor, it's a mix, really. It's a mix. There's some projects that 80% of the project team members are contractors and only 20% are employees. In and of itself, I haven't found that causing issues between the project manager and the BA. At least from a business case standpoint, they're working towards the same goal for that project to be implemented. If that project is implemented, that means there's work for both the project manager and the BA, regardless of who's a contractor and who's an employee. Oftentimes, when there are issues between a project manager and a BA, it stems from the style of work, not anything to do with the business case or the project itself. You know how two people just don't like each other? That's where that stems from, not from the business case. Because again, like I mentioned, when the project team and the project sponsor and other stakeholders are working on a business case, they all have one aim. It is to get an approval. So in and of itself, unless I'm misunderstanding your question, am I answering your question or are you asking me something else?
Yeah, I guess you are, but how will I put it? It's just a normal, organizational structure. You'll always have some sort of conflict arising. And so I'm just thinking in my head because
so the conflicts you're talking about, will it typically be at this point in the project where the project team and the project sponsor are trying to get approval for a project, or are you talking about when the project is already underway?
No, prior to
the project. Okay. I mean, nothing is impossible, but I haven't observed that to be the norm.
Okay.
Again, like I said, usually at this point, everybody's working towards one goal and they set aside the personal issues, right? We all want this project to be approved. We all want business case to be approved so we can kickstart the project. Where I've seen issues is where a project manager is not pulling their weight, they're pushing too much on the BA is pushing back, or the other way around, right? And it really boils down to work ethic. Maybe someone isn't pulling their weight type of thing.
Right. Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Moyo, sorry.
Yeah, Abiola, thank you very much. So I want to inquire in the scenario that we have the business skills affect one of the managements, or let's say the management, one of the managements, or a worker, and as you said, they insist that they won't make the projects work. How do you try to mitigate such risk?
Okay, that's a good question. To start with, if you ever were faced with that, maybe somebody brings it to your attention or you overheard something yourself, to start with, do not keep that information to yourself alone. Share it. Talk to your project manager about it. This is what you've heard. This is where you heard it, and all of that, because that is a project risk right there. So typically, when a project is about to happen, or even when the project is happening, there's some people that they're like your change champions. They are people rooting for the change. Oftentimes, they're like managers within departments. So if something like that is observed, maybe somebody in the accounting department or somebody in the marketing department has said, they're going to boycott the system, talk to the project manager about it. You and the project manager may decide to tell the sponsor about it. They may end up pulling that manager to say, this is what we're hearing from your department. We need you to handle it. And by handle it, I don't mean go berate anybody, but the manager needs to know those concerns are there. So when they're doing the team meeting, the manager can act like a true change champion and talk about the benefits of the system, how the system is going to benefit the people. Because, excuse me, when people are scared of losing their jobs, it's not, for a lot of people, a job is a means of livelihood, right? They don't want to lose their jobs. So if truly this project is not going to make them lose their jobs, it needs to be communicated. But sometimes management is so caught up in the numbers that not enough change management is done. Whatever information people have about the project is what they overheard. And when A says to B and B says to C, and it keeps trickling down, how it started and what we end up with are two different things, right? So it's really getting somebody in the circle of that person who wants to boycott the project to talk to them without letting them know what we heard. Okay. Now, as a BA, let's say that you're the one who walks into a meeting and the person confronts you with it. You're not going to have time to say, oh, let me quickly go talk to the project manager about it. At that point, you're going to need to be able to say something. It is the knowledge that you have as a BA that's going to save you at that point. How do you know? What do you know about the project that's going to make this person's life better? That's what you want to tell them in that meeting. So when I worked on that automation project with OCR, and we're automating a lot of things, giving into robotics process automation and all, people were concerned they're being replaced with robots, and genuinely they were. But the other part of the equation they were not aware of is that even though we're giving your current task to a robot, we're basically going to reassign you to a task that is better than the data entry that you're doing today. Had I not known that, and I just focused on requirement gathering, and I entered the meeting and they confronted me with that, I would have had nothing to say. And chances are when I book the next meeting, that person will decline and come up with a reason why they're not attending. So the point being, as a BA, you're going to be talking to people a lot. Be armed with information. Know as much as you can know, especially about the benefits of the project. So that when you're booking these meetings, that people are thinking, Abiola is just wasting my time. She's always booking a meeting. One strategy that I use is at the start of the meeting, I'm telling them how much better their lives will be once we go live. When they hear that, they relax and they want to talk to me. That's a strategy you definitely can use. Did I answer your question?
Yes. I have a second question.
Okay.
So, so I know that a business case is used to, first of all, it's used to implement benefits of whatever we're doing. So now, if we're trying to if we're trying to like improve a process or improve the business model, and let's say like innovation is involved here, or something like a tech is involved here, and that tech or innovation tends to like that's what we're trying to change will affect another business model that we are not even trying to even like touch, or we're not touching at all. How do you try to navigate those kind of problems? I don't know if I'm putting it very well.
No. You asked a good question, right? So the process we're trying to change is going to have downstream effect on another process.
Yes.
Is basically what you're saying.
Yes.
What if you're not aware of it until much later? It means you haven't done a good job. In the process of doing your current state analysis, you're analyzing the current pain points. What is the issue today? So you walk into that meeting with the accounting manager and you start talking to them about what they don't like about the current system. When they're telling you those pain points, right? And you're asking the question. So you mentioned to me that when you try to run this report, it takes 2 hours to run. And then after waiting 2 hours, you still need to analyze the data and send it to the finance department. What does that tell you? The fact that he even mentioned another department in that conversation already tells you that this process you're talking about has a downstream effect. You're not in a meeting with finance, you're in a meeting with accounting. But in that conversation, they mentioned finance. Once you're done talking about that accounting, or even while you're talking about that accounting, you begin to ask more questions about finance. And if the accounting manager is not able to answer those questions, you book a meeting with the finance manager. And so that's how you keep, removing those layers. Oftentimes, the job of a BA is that you're trying to remove layers. All you know is their layers. You don't know if it's 50 or 100 or 150 or 200. It is in making those inquiries and asking the how, when, who, why, that layer 99, I need to peel that. Layer 100, I need to peel that. Okay, that is typically how it happens. Is that to say that you could never miss a process? That's not what I'm saying, but it should hardly happen. It should hardly happen. As long as you're following the process step by step. When you're talking to them and it sounds like they're jumping a process, right? Take them back there. They need to tell you to the level of detail that you as a BA can write it as a story. And when you write it as a story and you give it to somebody else to read, without that person having been to the meetings that you went to, it should make sense to that person. Because whatever you're writing, you're going to end up giving it to a developer, right? And the developer is not going to meet with the accounting manager. And it needs to make sense to the developer. Okay, so yes, you shouldn't really be finding out much later in the project that there's downstream impact that you were not aware of. It really shouldn't be happening. If that happens, it will create oftentimes a problem. There may not be enough time to fix it. There may not be enough money to incorporate it. And so that's why it needs to be avoided by all means. Okay, and that's why the BA is going to keep asking those questions until everything is simplified. Bear in mind, a BA doesn't work in the accounting department, but by the time you're done capturing everything they're telling you, it needs to make sense to you as a BA. If it doesn't make sense to you, you need to go back to them. Okay, did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much. I yield the mic here.
Okay. Okay, so was that Moyosore who just spoke?
Yes.
Okay, so if you wouldn't mind lowering your hand, please. Justina? Justina, are you there?
Yes. Hi, Abiola. Thank you so much. So I just have 2 simple questions. I apologize in advance if I missed you explaining my first question. Okay, so my first question is, so about the business case. So let's say the shareholders or the higher ups come to you and say, hey, we want to build an app, prepare your business case and everything. So do they let you know how much you have to work with, like the budget, or you work with the budgeting department and they tell you, hey, this is what the company can afford at this time? Or are they going to work with whatever you and the accounting department, IT, and everything comes up with? Or at first hand, you already know this is what we are going to, assign for this project, and if that's what they do, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. And
if that's what they do, what if after everything you realize that your budget for the application or the application would be more than what was assigned to it? What do you do in that instance? That's my first question.
Okay, because your first question is like A, B, C, D. So let me answer first. No, it's okay. Okay, so how do you determine how much money you're going to ask for? That's your question, right?
Yes.
As a BA, right? How do you determine? Is that the question?
Yes. I just wanted to know if the responsibility is left solely to you, or the shareholders comes and say, this is how much we have for you.
So good question. No, it is not your responsibility as a BA to come up with the amount. As a matter of fact, it is not your responsibility as a BA to write the entire business case. You're going to do research to support the business case, right? But you don't get to determine the figure. I mean, you as a BA, they had you know how much you're earning, but you don't even know how much they're going to pay the developer, right? They typically don't share that information with you. Because that $3 million you're asking for is going to include the pay of the BA, the pay of the PM, the pay of the developers, QA, anybody on the project team, and other costs, right? That's not information they will share with you as a BA. So you're not going to know that. The other part of it, which you're more likely to know about as a BA, is the benefits. Because you're meeting with the departments and they're telling you, if we implement this tool, this is how much we can save. If we implement this tool, this is how much more money we can make. And even that one is still not yours to decide how much. It's just the information you've gathered, right? The project team is going to analyze it together and with the project sponsor, right? And come up with the final cost benefit analysis. A BA in everything I've talked about is a part player. None of this is your full responsibility, and you really should not be coming up with those figures because there is no way you're going to have all the information you need. As a matter of fact, no single individual will have all of the information that is needed to be able to come up with that figure. Okay?
Yeah. Okay, so in other words, there is no scenario or circumstance where a BA is presenting and is like, if you assign, $3 million, we'll be able to give you like $5 million in 5 years, yada yada yada. They're like, first of all, we can't afford this. So there is no way that can happen.
Yeah. So that's a separate question, right? And typically, if you're presenting a business case, right, given that the project sponsor would have been involved, the project sponsor is usually somebody who wines and dines with the CEO. They know what the company can afford. A project sponsor, just like their name says, right, they are the sponsor. Even though the organization is dropping the money, but they're dropping it through the sponsor. And because you would never, ever present a business case that the project sponsor has not approved, there's no way you could ever ask for money the company cannot afford. It can't happen.
Okay. Perfect.
If it happens, it means the project sponsor is sleeping on the job. They don't know what they're doing. And it won't be your problem as a BA. So that would not happen. However, what can happen is you can ask for the money and the company will say, no, we're not giving you the money. That can happen. Or they would say, yes, we'll give you the money, but not now because we've prioritized this other project above yours. And that's why you're doing a business case, right? Because every year, the company has decided we're spending $20 million on IT. Every department is vying for a piece of the cake. Project wants some money. Legal wants some money. This other department wants some money. So everybody's going to come. The project team is not the only one presenting their case, right? And so when everybody presents their case, and maybe the project team is the only one, but the point being that is why you're making a case, right? Every time you make a case to someone, one of two things will happen. It'll be a yes or a no. Okay? Just like when we ask our friend, I need this favor, it'd be a yes or a no. Okay? So that is always a possibility. It doesn't happen often, but it is possible. Let's say the business case was presented and it was really not good. It made no sense. Nobody's going to drop 3 million for that. Do you understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. What's your next question?
Okay, so the second question is based on when you want to identify the risk and everything. So let's say you're given a project to create a mobile app or something that would involve automation, and then you know that eventually 70% of the labor force would be forcefully asked to resign or would have to be let go, So is it our responsibility to find a solution, or do we just put that under accept and put it in a, maybe like a condition or whatever and say eventually 70 to blah, blah, blah of the labor force might be, asked to leave? Or is it our responsibility basically to just prefer a solution, or we just leave it at that and say, in the event of us deploying this app, so number of people would be, let go, or we wouldn't need this much labor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So every time you itemize a risk in your document, you have to talk about how the risk will be addressed. However, how that risk will be addressed is not your problem as a BA. You need to talk to the people with that information, get it from them, and put it in the document. If you're doing a project where 70% of the workforce is going to be made redundant, trust me, that's way above your pay scale. That's like an organization issue, something the CEO should be thinking about morning and night. Right? It's not your place. It's not the project manager's place. Even the project sponsor, it's only his or her place only to an extent. It's a bigger organizational issue that would need to be addressed. Okay? And some of the things that they would need to address it are things that they need to be at the organization level to start thinking about. If 70% of people are going to be made redundant because we're automating, even when you automate, you need to hire new hands, the people with the skill for the automation. So like when we implemented robotics process automation, we had to hire robotics developers so that if the bot, we call it bot, they don't really call it robot. If the bot decides to sleep and not work today, trust me, I don't know how to wake a bot up. I don't even know how the bots do it. I just see, like I'm just looking at the screen and I'm seeing things move across the screen. Nobody's touching it. Like I said yesterday, it was like magic. But for some reason, the bot stops working. Somebody needs to wake it up. Somebody needs to make it work again. So, and that's going to be part of the risk strategy, right? This is the risk. People are going to quit. These are people we don't even, need anyway. Maybe we would have retained 20% of the people who wanted to quit, but we won't have control over it because they're going to be mad at the company and they'll quit. So we're going to have a plan. Hire 20% more, hire the technical resources we need for the new automation tools. Okay? But all of that, whether they're going to hire a robotics engineer or not, it's not your place as a BA, right? But you will highlight, working with the project manager, project sponsor, you highlight the need that, okay, we're going to need this additional resources, right? How the company wants to go about hiring them, how much they want to pay them. You're not going to be privy to all of that as a BA.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, awesome. Emmanuel.
Yeah, hi, Abiola. Thanks.
Hi.
So I just have an observation actually regarding the last slide.
Okay.
If you don't mind, yeah. So I was just wondering, what is the connection between the headings and what we have in that particular slide in terms of stages to risk assessment? So
let me take a quick look at the slide.
Yeah.
I think it's the one that said investment appraisal.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Okay, I'm looking at it now. That may need to be updated because the slide is talking about the how to address risk, right? And the title is investment appraisal. Okay, noted. And thank you for bringing that up.
No problems.
Oh, did you have any other question?
No, not at all.
No, okay, not for now.
Thanks.
Okay,
yeah.
Does any other person have any questions before I go into the presentation? No? Okay. So in the time that we have, I'm going to do a quick presentation. I think I have just about 14 slides in it. If you give me a second, I will pull it up. And I'm going to share the business case with you as well. I believe it will help you with your presentation. Okay. So, okay, I have a different point on. Can everybody see it? If anybody can let me know. Can anybody see a document that says business case?
No, we can't.
You can't? Okay, let me try that again. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. Okay, someone said I'm still sharing the old screen. Okay, so let me. Okay, why does that keep happening? I'll close that. 1 second here. Okay, I'm sharing again now. This should work. Please let me know.
Yes, it's fine now.
It's fine? Okay, great. Thank you for your patience with that. Okay, so one quick thing to mention here is I made this up. It's really not for any company. I didn't really present a business case for Topshop. I basically created this document to be able to present it to you. Okay, so today I'm going to be presenting a business case for the implementation of Salesforce at Topshop, and I'm making this presentation to you, the executive team. Okay, I'm starting my presentation now. Today, the cost of customer turnover at Topshop is $7.5 million annually. As a result, there is a need to change the way we attract, retain, and manage our customers, partners, and potential customers. What is happening in our current state today? Today, we have very low visibility into the sales and service life cycle. Our data sources are not connected, which often means that we're working with outdated data. Teams are not able to collaborate with one another because there is no connectivity. The different systems that the different business units within the organization is using is making the messaging that we're sharing with our customers inconsistent because some of the systems are more up to date than others. We do not have any form of automation today. And consequently, we're not able to leverage some of the opportunities in the industry. Today, we do a lot of manual entry, and our methods of tracking existing and new relationships are very inefficient. We do not have performance management, and our goals are not aligned. There is no knowledge base that we can rely on in-house or that even our customers can access. Currently, we're with a high-risk vendor who provides little or no support and has a high potential of going off market on short notice. To make this worse, we do not have a single source of truth because, again, like I mentioned earlier, we're using different systems that have different degrees of correctness to the data in the systems. We know that the current state today cannot get us to the next level in our organization. And so we've looked into the future to say, where do we want to be? What are the things that we need to achieve as an organization to take us to the next level? One, we need improved visibility into the sales and service lifecycle. We need to know who our potential customers are. We need to be able to reach them so we don't lose them to the competition. We need up-to-date reporting. The most up-to-date data so that we can make business critical decisions. We need dashboards that are user-friendly, dashboards that the managers of different departments can view and know how well the department is doing and what opportunities exist for improvement. We need the messaging to our customers and our partners to be consistent. We need to be proactive about what we offer to our partners and to our customers and even potential customers. We need automation so that we can be more efficient in the service that we provide. We need to be able to collaborate better within Topshop, and we need to have improved collaboration with our customers as well. We need for our data and service planning to be based on data and not based on guesses like it is today. We need to bring our sales processes together across the business unit so that we're working towards a single visible goal. We need a system that can actually help us do the work that we do. We need to be able to spend more time on value-add services compared to the administrative tasks, such as data entry that we're doing today. And we need to be able to reuse our processes so that we can save time, we can be more transparent, and we can leverage quick gains within the industry. Let's take a quick look at our growth strategy. As we walk towards Topshop 2023, through automation, we intend to achieve higher productivity. By integrating our sales processes, we will achieve an improved Topshop where potential customers will be more than willing to work with us to become our customers because they will be confident that we will take care of their needs. Topshop 2023 is going to be a modern and engaging sales platform that will support 5,000 customers globally. That is a 40% increase from our customer base of today. Topshop 2023, which is the implementation of Salesforce, will help with strategic sales planning to onboard 500 new customers before 2024. Bear in mind that 500 new customers does not necessarily just equal 500 new accounts, because for every customer that we have, they often have multiple divisions. And so the number is actually greater than 500. Topshop 2023 is going to help with our customer and partner retention. We will build lasting relationships. What we're experiencing today is that due to the limitations of the current application, our customers are getting frustrated and leaving Topshop within 2 to 3 years of becoming a customer. Topshop 2023 is going to change that story. By implementing Topshop 2023, we're going to become the best in industry at attracting and retaining new customers and partners. And Topshop 2023 is going to give us the ability to evolve with industry changes, leveraging the technology of Salesforce. Last but not least, Topshop 2023 is going to help us achieve harmonized sales processes with 10% growth 1 year post-implementation. Let's talk about the tangible and intangible benefits of implementing the Salesforce application. Currently, today, we spend 10% of our time and resources on planning, 40% on sales and service delivery, and 50% on administration. What does this tell us? It tells us that as a company, we are spending more time on administrative tasks than sales, which is the reason why we exist. How different do we want the future to look? Topshop 2023 is going to put us in a position where only 15% of our time will be spent on planning, which is a 50% increase from what it is today. Sales and service is going to go up to 60%. which is 20% higher than it is in the current state. This is already a win for Topshop because sales and service is why we exist. Administration is going to go down to 10% from 50%. And technology and automation will be 15%. Part of this 15% is going to be the implementation of Salesforce. What does this translate to in numbers? We're going to increase our lead to account ratio from 10 to 1.5. Okay, so today, for every 10 potential customers that we have, only about 1.5 of them are translating into customers. We will be increasing that by 100%, taking it to 3 from 1.5. And this is going to be achieved because we're going to have improved visibility into the sales cycle. We're going to reduce the administrative costs by $650,000. And not just that, because we're automating a lot of the administrative function, we are going to have a drastic reduction in data entry errors and inconsistent data. We're going to have a reduction of $750,000 in application maintenance and data loss. Our current application is very expensive to maintain because there is insufficient support for the application. By retiring this application and implementing Salesforce, we're going to be saving $750,000 annually. There is a potential of 15% savings through account attrition reduction and another 10% increase in revenue 1 year post-implementation. In addition to all of these great benefits, there will be a reduction in the time that it takes to execute a typical sales transaction because Salesforce is made to sell, and it's going to help us as an organization achieve our goal to sell more of our products. Topshop 2023 is going to help us with data-driven customer acquisition planning. Now we're not going to be working towards customer acquisition blindly or working with outdated data. Now we're going to have real-life data that can support our customer acquisition planning. We're going to be able to identify opportunities, and our customers and partners will have a consistent experience regardless of who they're dealing with in Topshop, because everybody in Topshop is going to be looking at the most up-to-date data in the Salesforce application. We're going to have a 30% reduction in weekly email transactions. The tool that we have today does not have the automation to send important notifications to our customers about the transactions they've had with us. That would no longer be a problem in the future. And then last but not least, we're going to have a reduction in customer turnover. Today, customer turnover is costing Topshop $7.5 million annually. We onboard a customer, they leave us between 2 to 3 years, and we're chasing down new customers. And our customer base is not growing, even though we're onboarding new customers, because we're losing the existing customers. On our books annually, this is costing $7.5 million. By implementing Topshop 2023, we are going to be saving this amount and redirecting it to more profitable ventures within the organization. So what are the expected benefits of implementing Topshop 2023? One is increased operational efficiency. So our operations will be streamlined, leveraging automation. Our processes are going to be harmonized. We're going to be able to acquire customers faster than we're doing today. And our messaging and interaction within the organization and outside the organization is going to be consistent. Secondly, we're going to facilitate company growth. Again, data-driven sales and actualization, enhanced collaboration, because now we're going to have more efficient avenues of talking to our customers. Our sales pipeline is going to be more efficient. We can envisage what's going to come through the pipeline, and we can be proactive in dealing with it. And we're going to be able to manage our time better. Thirdly, we're going to have reduction in customer acquisition and retention costs. Okay, we know that we need to continue acquiring new customers, but it is costing a lot today with multiple departments working on acquiring a customer and sending inconsistent messaging to the customer. By implementing TopShop 2023, we're going to have improved account planning and time management. We're going to save money on administrative functions because we're going to leverage automation within the tool. We're going to have improved sales and customer acquisition process, and we're going to have increased collaboration within the organization and with the customers, like I mentioned earlier. Fourthly, we're going to have improved customer visibility. So centralized customer information, everybody would know where to look to get the most updated data about our customer. We're going to have improved customer and partner experience. But in addition to that, we're actually going to have happier employees as well. We're going to have improved customer visibility and improved customer engagement. Once our customers begin to engage with us through the tool and they discover how easy and user-friendly it is, they will be more encouraged to work with us more. So how are we going to actualize this? We start with the initiation and planning. We do an initial assessment. We set measurable goals. So we're going to indicate where we're saving money or where we're making money. Okay? We identify the stakeholders. We engage with and manage the stakeholders. We have our change champions who are going to help us actualize the project. And we're going to identify and document the risk involved. Then we're going to implement the project. We're going to do a full analysis of the pain points. I say full analysis because I've told you these pain points already, but we're going to have a more detailed document that will speak to the pain points. We're going to define the future state. What can you expect should you approve TopShop 2023? We will identify the gaps between the current and the future state. What will it take us to get to the desired future state from where we are today? We're going to elicit our requirements from the stakeholders. We'll implement the solution. We'll train the end users, and we'll make sure that we perform change management to ensure that this change is going to be well received by the organization and our customers. Once we're done implementing it, we're going to monitor the solution. We're going to verify, does this solution actually meet the need? Okay? We're going to identify any new processes or procedures that need to be implemented as part of the project, and we're going to monitor the metrics. Where we've said we're going to save money, are we saving money? Where we've said we're going to make money, are we making money? Let's talk about our change management approach. Our objective is to implement a structured approach to change that would reduce the level of disruption that will be experienced within and outside the organization. And this is to ensure that the change is well received. So first, we're going to understand organizational context and readiness. Okay? And then we understand the impact, levels of resistance, and develop a change strategy to address it. We will then develop and implement the plans that we need to implement to achieve TopShop 2023. Lastly, we will measure and course correct as required. We have a lot of information upfront, but as we're all aware, as a project progresses, sometimes there's new information that comes up. We will make sure we continue to factor in that new information to align with the goal of the organization. In essence, what we're saying is that we're going to make sure we understand the vision and reason for the change. And then we'll develop detailed understanding of the potential impact of this change within the organization and outside the organization. And then we devise a strategy for addressing the impact. We're going to develop and implement the following plans. The sponsor roadmap. How does the sponsor intend to support the project? How do we plan on addressing resistance should it occur? All of that will be documented in the resistance management document. We're going to talk about our stakeholder engagement. How do we plan on engaging with the stakeholder, the different groups of stakeholders that we have? And then communication and training. Many projects succeed or fail on the pedestals of communication and training. We understand that really well, and that's why we're going to dedicate the required time to constant communication and training everybody that needs to be trained. And then we will continuously evaluate the impacts of this change as the implementation details become more refined. Let's talk about the project risk. There are risks in every project, and we've identified the following risks for TopShop 2023. First, user acceptance due to conventional ways of doing business. How we do business today is how we've done it for the last 15 years. We are well aware that there are people who may not readily embrace the change we're about to bring on. Okay, that is a risk we've identified. Second risk is that the enterprise, thinking about cloud technology right now, is new. Cloud is in vogue and everybody wants to go to the cloud. But as an organization, we're not very knowledgeable about cloud technology. And so that's another risk that we've identified. Change management competency within TopShop is relatively new because as an organization, we haven't done any major change in the last 15 years. Lastly, today we have multiple technology platforms that we use to support the work that we do. And now we want to consolidate it into one or two applications. There is a ton of data currently housed in these disparate technologies that we use today. There is a risk in pulling that data, cleaning it up, and loading it into the new tools that we're going to be implementing. Okay. The details of how we will be addressing the risk is included in the risk management plan that will be shared at the end of this meeting. But one critical part of our business case we're making today is why we've chosen the application that we've chosen of the 3 applications that have been considered prior. One is that Salesforce is secure. Today, leaders in our industry, as a matter of fact, our biggest competitors use this application. They're leveraging the power of Salesforce to be able to grow their bottom line. Secondly, Salesforce is highly customizable. As an organization, we can tweak it to meet our unique needs in TopShop. And we can also grow the application. It is a very user-friendly application that even though we've acknowledged the fact that we need to train people on it, we do not expect that it is going to be a prolonged training because the tool itself is user-friendly. Lastly, Salesforce is very robust. It is a tool with many capabilities, and based on the functionalities that we need within the organization, we are confident that the tool has the capabilities to be able to help us achieve this goal in TopShop. A few more things to add to why we're implementing Salesforce. It has centralized customer information. One can easily retrieve customer information in the application. If a user within the company needs to look at an account, a contact, a task, an event, an opportunity that is tied to a lead, these are all things that the application does really well. It has great visibility. It helps with account planning as well. Sales rep can make plans for accounts. They can create to-do items. It would help ensure that nothing falls through the cracks. In addition, it is a tool that has great time management functionality. With comprehensive customer information and a wealth of planning resources. Last but not least is team collaboration. With the chatter feature in Salesforce, individuals and groups within our organization can talk about work-related, they can share work-related information as it relates to a client, a territory, or even other essential topics within the organization. All of these functionalities are things that are needed in TopShop, and these are things that Salesforce does really well. The tool is robust enough to be able to meet the need of TopShop as it relates to all the items that I've mentioned. Let's talk about our goal as an organization. What is our business requirement as an organization? We want a customer relationship management tool that would help us increase our customer and partner acquisition rates, boost our financial position by growing our client base, enhance visibility into the opportunity conversion and sales cycle, and improve our customer retention rate. Today, our current disparate systems and processes cost the organization about $1.4 million annually. That pales in comparison to how much the organization is losing due to customer turnover, which is an average of 7.5 million. By implementing Salesforce, we're basically saying that we can reduce this wastage and increase the organization's bottom line by saving about 9 million, which is a combination of the 1.4 million and the $7.5 million. What will the journey look like to implement this application? One is we're going to define the goal of the project. Then we're going to set the metrics for success, basically, because we need to be able to measure our success. That would help us determine whether or not we achieved it. We will then identify the stakeholders that we're going to work with. We will clearly communicate the goal of the project to the stakeholders. We will gather our requirements from the stakeholders and document it. After documenting it, we will categorize it and verify the requirements. Once we verify the requirements, we will validate the requirements as well. Then we'll manage the change that will follow because we know there will be a big change impact by retiring 5 applications today and replacing it with 1 application. We will then implement the requirements. When we're done implementing it, we will test it to make sure that it actually works for our organization. Once we test it and we can confirm that the results are in alignment with the business requirements, we will present the solution. We will push the solution out to the decision makers. Now we're ready to go live. We will then put that solution in our production environment, which means that people within TopShop will be able to use Salesforce. And it doesn't stop there. Our customers will be able to interface with us using the tool as well. We will then continue to monitor the solution to identify if and when it needs to be tweaked. And we will verify the results that we've claimed that we will achieve. Okay, let's look at the timeline for this implementation. So in March, we're going to build the implementation team. Okay, so let's assume we're not in March already. In March, we're going to build the implementation team. That will take us from March to June. In August, we're going to select and contract the system integrator. And what that means is that when we implement Salesforce, Salesforce will need to talk to at least one other application within the organization currently. So we know that it's not just as easy as buying Salesforce. What we also need to make sure is that it will work effectively and efficiently with the existing application we're keeping. Okay? And that would go from June to August. In this time period, we're going to seek executive and audit committee approval. We may revise our business case based on the feedback that we receive from the system integrator or the executive and audit committee. Starting in August, we will then begin to plan the project. And in the fall, we will kick off the project. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Actually, that comes to the end of my presentation. So before I open it up for questions, I want to mention a few things. That slide that I just presented to you, I believe it had about 14, the PowerPoint had about 14 slides in it. So if we take out the introduction, it's the appendix, so it's really just about 12 slides in there. When you present a business case in your organization, it may be the same size. Oftentimes, it will be bigger than that. This business case is to give you an idea of what you expected to talk about. If you notice, the few critical things that I talked about is, one, what do we stand to benefit from implementing it? I talked about the money that we're going to save. I talked about how many more customers we're going to get and all of that. But I also talked about the pain point. One of the reasons it's important to talk about the pain points is that the people you're presenting to sometimes do not feel the pain point directly because they're not the ones working with that application that isn't working well. They understand the impact on the bottom line because somebody somewhere will communicate it to them. But the headache of working with the application daily, they do not know it. And so that's one of the reasons why you're going to include the pain points in your presentation. I'll open it up for questions now. I'll start with people who will raise up their hands. Does anybody have any question? Okay, I see the hands going up. Maria, we'll go with you first. Mariah, I hope I pronounced your name well. Is it Mariah? I'm thinking Mariah. Please unmute yourself. We can't hear you. I can see you. You're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Maybe type in your question. We'll go with Emmanuel.
All right. So thank you very much, Abiola. So my question is, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So my question is this, based on this business case that has been presented today, and I was just wondering as well that at what point, because I could see some items or probably some things that probably should be coming from the project manager as well, maybe towards the end of that presentation. I don't know if I'm right or wrong.
I think you're right. And that's why I mentioned earlier on that a BA contributes to a business case. It's not your job to write an entire business case.
Okay.
So the project manager is going to contribute to it. The project sponsor is going to contribute to it. But a lot of times they would leave the coordination to you.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Mariah, are you ready? Okay, we'll go with Tango.
Hello, Abiola. Thank you so much for the session today and the presentation, of course. The thing is, I quite see how clear and, straight to the point the presentation is. I just wanted to ask, though, would it be out of place in preparing such presentations for one to use, say, maybe graphs, some pictorial depiction, especially when you talk about, the leakage or wastages and all that, depict something like a basket leaking or something? Is it out of place to use things like that? Thank you.
That's a very good question. Oh, sorry, are you done with the question?
Oh, yes, I'm done. Thank you.
Yeah, it won't be out of place. As a matter of fact, that's why I said my presentation was just about 12 slides. When you're presenting yours, because you're going to have, depending on how we're doing with time, you're going to have much longer. Our expectation is a full-on business case. You put your graphs in there. We want you to go all out. Graphs are always good. They're always good. Like upper management, they'd rather look at a graph than read text usually. So when you do a graph with the numbers, fantastic. So it won't be out of place at all. It's a solid idea to use that. Another thing you wouldn't find in my business case is, remember when I was doing the class about business case, I talked about contrasting the cost benefit analysis, right? I expect to see that when you do your business case. I'm not going to put all of that in my document because I don't want my document to be replicated. But I'm going to give an outline of what we expect when you're presenting your business case, and all of these things will need to be included in there. And the reason is that I want to be able to give you feedback on how well it's been done, what can be improved on, and all of that, because we're practicing here, right? So that when you get on the job, you're basically going to wow them. But to your question, Tembo, no, it would not be out of place to use graphs and,
all right.
Just have some slides with pictures in there, pictures that tell a story.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Stella?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It was really very, very insightful, and it's thought-provoking. But my question is in writing a business case, do you have something like a checklist to say, okay, I've talked about this, I've been able to build up this and this? Is there something like a checklist that would help you, know what to write and what not to write? That's my
your question. Okay. So
that's my first question.
Okay, let me answer that and you can ask the next one. For the business case you're going to present in class, I'm going to give you an outline. However, when you get on the job, you're going to follow whatever they want you to do there. Okay. So like I said, there's some things that if you don't have it, you really haven't written a business case, right? Of course, the benefit analysis, the pain point, the future state, the application, how much money you're asking for, and why they should give you that money. All of that, typically you need to include in there. But the organization you end up with, the project sponsor and the project manager might want to include a few more things, or they might take out some things, right? It's really not a one-size-fits-all when it comes to it. However, there's some things that need to be included, because if it's not included, you've really not written a business case, like I said. Like, for you to make a case for money, you need to convince them on why they should give you the money.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah. Okay.
And then also my second question, I think you talked about it right now.
Ask anyway. Who knows? Maybe I might have more to add to it.
Now, let me say they kind of want to implement a solution, and a competitor business is already has gone ahead to do the same thing. Is it okay for you to reference a competitor business in your presentation to your management to say, and this is the reason why, okay, they did this, and today they have about, let me say, 40% market share. This is what is going to happen if we do the same thing. Is it okay for you to reference a competitor while talking to your own management?
Good question. So typically, right, if you just say the top 3 competitors within the industry, your CEO knows who the top 3 competitors are, right? Without calling anybody's name. Having said that, if what you're saying is so high level to say, oh, they have 40% market share, it's probably information on the internet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let's say because you have a friend working with the competitor who was able to give you information, do not include that. Do not include information you cannot confidently tell them how you sourced it. Okay. Right? But it's okay to talk about the competitor, how they have 40%. If the competitor has 40% anyway, the powers that be should know. And if they don't know, they probably need to be fired. They should know. When you say it, you're not saying anything new. Okay? Mm-hmm. But if you wanted to say something like, oh, the competitor tried to implement it and it failed because the project team didn't know what they were doing. Somebody told you that. That information is good for you because when you're doing the implementation, you're going to try to avoid the mistakes that they made. But that's not something you can come out and talk about. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So Tengu, if I answered your question already, if you wouldn't mind lowering your hand, Stella as well. Maria, your hand is still raised, but we can't hear you. I'm going to go into...
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So my question is actually the beginning of this entire process. So I know that when we do the project, you will give like some sort of statement of purpose, something that kickstarts the process here, that lets you know what you're creating the business case for. So in a real life scenario, where would that document come from? Like the very beginning, the person who identifies the problem that we're trying to solve, where would that information come from and in what format?
That's a good question. It typically will come from the project sponsor. So let's talk about the project sponsor a little bit. The sponsor is somebody who wants to pay for it. That person identified the need within the organization and they want to go to the entire management team to fight for the $3 million. They are the ones who have identified the need. Your second question, how will they communicate it? Do you mean communicate it to the project team?
Yes, I guess it's the project team, yeah? The project team that includes the BA.
Okay, so typically, there are many ways it could be communicated. It can be in a business requirement document. So as part of my presentation, I talked about the business requirements, right? Many times, a company, they may have a business requirement document. The BA, if they've hired you at that point of the project, you will contribute to the project. You may contribute to the business requirement document, or they may hire you after they've put it together. It could also be included in something called a project initiation document. We talked about it yesterday. But that need will be documented somewhere. As a BA, when they hire you, like I was saying yesterday, somebody somewhere needs to show you a document about why they want to do what they want to do. Like even if it's a one-page document, it needs to be documented somewhere. If it is not documented, again, somebody hasn't done their job properly. You may then have to talk to people to get that information from them. But I've hardly in all my years working as a BA, worked on a project that didn't have some form of document before they brought me on. Sometimes it'll be like a 3-page document, but it will be documented somewhere. Bear in mind, it's going to be very high level, almost useless, apart from the fact that it's telling you what the organization wants to achieve, right? That's all it's really going to tell you. It's not going to tell you the details of how they're going to achieve it. That's one of the reasons why they hired you as a BA. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Jans, am I pronouncing your name properly?
Try again.
Hi.
Jans.
Jans. Okay, I apologize.
That's fine.
Hi, Jans.
Yes, so I have 2 questions. The first one is, who owns the business case proposal? Is it a BA or a company? I'm asking this because in the write-up that you presented, I realized that there was no mention of a non-disclosure clause or anything anywhere. And especially for projects that are not implemented, of course, you might have to be discreet about the details and everything. So who owns the project? Is it a company or the BA?
Okay, so the BA never owns anything. Okay. The only thing you own as a BA is your paycheck. You don't own anything. You don't make any decisions about anything. Sometimes they would invite you to sit in a meeting where they want to make decisions. They don't even expect you to contribute to the decision. So no, you don't own anything. Typically, the business case is owned by the project sponsor. The project sponsor is the one who's asking the CEO for the money. So they own it. And no, they typically don't include a non-disclosure agreement in there, because that document can be viewed by a lot of people. Whatever you don't want people to read, do not put it in a document, because you have no control over who's going to be able to view it. Now, typically, a lot of companies use SharePoint, and in SharePoint, they will grant access to, this person can view the document, that person can't view the document. That's about it. Everybody they're given access to can view the documents. A business case is not a confidential document. It is not. That's not the intent. The intent is for multiple parties to contribute to it with the sole goal of getting the approval for the $3 million.
Okay. All right. And then the second question, it borders on conflicts of interest.
Okay.
So in the case where you are putting together a business case and you get to a proof of concept aspect, and you realize that one of the candidates who you are inviting to come on board or to show proof is somebody who is directly related to you, a brother, a spouse, or a close friend. So at that point, you excuse yourself in the selection process, so somebody else would carry on that part. Now, in the rare case or in the event that they select the person you know or you're related to, and it happens that things didn't end up like you planned in the project, are you to be blamed, or who will be blamed for that aspect?
So, excuse me, if things don't work out, nobody is really. So again, depending on why it didn't work out, but let me address the first part of your question. You're doing the proof of concept. One of the companies, your brother works there, your sister works there, right? Let the project manager know. The ethical thing to do will be to not be the one collating the results.
Yes.
You need to remove yourself from there. But you don't just remove yourself. You work with the project manager and the project sponsor, right, to remove yourself from that part of the process, right? Let's say that the company where your brother works is the one that gets the contract and they don't deliver, right? And they don't deliver. It would be your fault. You were not even one of the people who chose them, so it can't be your fault. If it's going to end up being anybody's fault, it won't be your fault because you didn't choose them. You removed yourself from the process, right? And secondly, when projects fail, people don't think in terms of fault. Whose fault is it? They don't think of that in the context of a single human being. They may say, oh, maybe the project team didn't do what the project team was supposed to do. Of course, within the project team, everybody's like, yeah, the BA was not a very solid BA, or the PM was not a very solid PM. People know, but when they talk about it at the group level. And no, you're not going to be blamed for it.
Okay.
The BA is hardly blamed for anything not directly relating to requirements, because requirements, which is a large part, that's like a BA's bread and butter. Gathering requirement from stakeholders, and we're going to spend a fair bit of time talking about it. That is the main thing they've had a BA for. So if the requirements are done properly, that is where they may not speak highly of the BA. Anything outside of that, you are participating, you are contributing, you do not own it.
Okay.
So you shouldn't take the fall for it, really.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Awesome. So let's see what questions we have. Okay. Abiola said, are we always to present the business case as a PowerPoint? When can we be asked to design a business case template as part of organization document for a proposed project? No, you do not always need to present it as a PowerPoint. But my advice to you, as much as possible, present things in PowerPoint. With PowerPoint, you can use color. Okay, when people come into your meetings, they have 3 other things they're thinking about. How do you catch their attention? If all you've gone in with is an Excel document with data, chances are you're going to lose them. If you've gone in with a Word document that just has a ton of text, chances are you'd lose them. PowerPoint is actually a very good tool to use in a project environment anytime you're doing a presentation. Now, a PowerPoint won't always fit the bill. In that case, figure out what will. Right? Figure out what will fit the bill. But if you're presenting data, you're presenting information, you're trying to get people to make a decision, always try to go with PowerPoint before any other thing. And if PowerPoint won't work, then consider other options. Abiodun, the second part of your question, when can we be asked to design a template? Typically, nobody's going to ask you to design a template. They're going to say, we need to create a business case. We need to create a business requirement document. As a matter of fact, almost all companies already have a template they follow. What you're going to do more often than not is to take the template and start filling it out. The templates are so good that the template itself will be an example. So when you are trying to fill out your part as a BA, you're not starting from scratch. You know what you're trying to document, but you can see how they've documented it in the past, and you basically just follow that. They almost always have their own templates, sometimes even with their logo and all of that. And that's what they want you to use. And please, do not try to reinvent the wheel unless you can actually make it 100 times more fantastic than what they already have. Make your life easy. Start with what they have. If they have a template, use their templates. Okay? Abiodun, did that answer your question? Okay, you said thanks so much, so I'll take it to be a deed. Hans, your hand is still raised. Did you have another question? Okay, so awesome. Looks like we got through all of the questions today. I hope that the information I've shared with you today, from teaching about business case and doing the presentation, has given you an idea of what might be expected of you when you eventually get on a project. But before we get to that point, you're going to be presenting, like I mentioned earlier on. So the class is going to be divided into 4 or 5 groups, and we'll have a minimum of 2 groups present per day. We may be able to get 3 groups actually. I'll share a bit more information about who's going to be in what group, what day you're going to be presenting, and the outline that we expect you to follow. Okay, once you receive the outline, if you have any questions, please ask while you're working with your team. I'm going to leave it to the teams to coordinate how you want to go about, your presentation, create a WhatsApp group if you have to. You don't need to invite me in there, but together, make it work. And please wow us, let us listen to your presentation, and we should want to hire you. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, people. It doesn't have to be. That's why we're doing what we're doing, to be able to share that feedback. I will give feedback to every group, but every other group that isn't presenting at that time will also give feedback to the group presenting. Okay, awesome. So we have 5 minutes left. I know it's already very late in some other time zones. Thank you so much for your time today. Always a pleasure connecting with you and sharing some of my knowledge. I look forward to meeting with you tomorrow.